It'll prepare the stream and then I have to go to YouTube and go live from there.
I had to learn a lot of techniques and technology for this.
Yeah, I know. Shahid gave me literally a crash course on this. Okay. Now let me see. Go live.
Do I look exactly at the camera or do I look at you? How does it best work?
Uh whichever
Right
looks.
now I'm looking at a camera. Does this look better, or if I'm looking at the video feed, this looks better, or this one?
I think it should be okay. Either ways.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, let me now check once the live stream is fine. And then I'll. Yep, I think we are good on the live stream.
That's great.
So we are on the live, and I'll share the link with everybody on the call, and we'll have people joining us up. So that's our live stream, and we'll just forward it to a couple of people so that folks can join in. And Shalini, if you want to share the link, you can also share it.
Are you sending it on WhatsApp?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. So I guess welcome everybody. We are here for our second episode of talk show. So we have our travel and talk show that we keep doing over. We try to do it like every alternate week. We so far we've been successful, and today we have a very special story to tell all of you. And I hope everyone enjoyed our first episode that we had on Peru, which was doing a Latin American journey and how we went through it. And today we have a very interesting topic, given the fact that we are all stuck at home during the COVID days, and all of us, we are like we're still trying to figure out how do we still keep a balance, work, life, family, kids, and then travel. So we have a very interesting story to share, and we have with us Shalini as our guest today. And what Shalini wants to talk about is her experience on going about the RV journey. So, we have all started becoming as innovative as possible to kind of do different things. And, a big welcome to Shalini. And, Shalini, why don't you tell us, like, what actually triggered you from doing this? Like, why are we like, why not doing a road trip, booking up an Airbnb, but why are we?
Sure, sure. Thank you, Neela, for the opportunity. Thank you to Firse for giving me this platform to speak to you guys about my experience. So, as a child, I don't know, I've always been fascinated with living off the grid. It's something which is accepted now, but as a child, all those adventure stories in which people would live off the grid or travel in a caravan, those were really exciting to me. I remember as a child when people would ask me, what would you like to be? I would say that I want to be a traveler and I just want to travel different countries. So I think I have a travel bug. And due to this COVID situation, since we couldn't travel, I kind of looked around as to what's the best way to still give the kids some sort of a summer vacation. And it seemed like RV would be a good option because before they give it to you, they sanitize it and you're just in one place the entire time. You can definitely cut down on the number of people you interact with. So that was the motivation, but essentially it was a childhood dream
I
for
think
me.
that's a very interesting, inspiration to start your journey, because I think I always loved traveling. And RV is something, probably I've still not thought about it, because I think I'm in like a stage where I still rough it out. I would go and do camping, tenting, but probably with children, I know it's a lot more different ball game. So I think, it will be interesting, because we have a lot of parents who are part of this group and who have small children of your age group, and it would be really insightful for them if you can tell us, like, okay, how do you start your planning? Like, what is the first thing that someone, if they think of doing RV journey, what is the very first thing that they need to kind of plan for?
Yeah. The first thing that you have to know is it's a lot of work. So if
Mhm.
you're looking for a small vacation or a short vacation which is easy on you, maybe not an RV.
Mhm.
It's a
Okay.
lot of work. It's a learning curve. But if you're the kind of person, as you said, that I can tough it out, I like to go off the grid, I like to do things a little different, then definitely explore it. It's a great learning experience for the kids. It's a lot of fun, and there are some definite pros when you're traveling with kids. For example, bathroom breaks, right? I mean, my kids always tell me that they need to go to the restroom just like 5 minutes before they really have to go. And it's so hard. But here there will be many occasions when I would just kind of park the RV, take an exit, park it. Okay, do your business. Let's go on the road again. So that's a definite plus. And again,
And
just
it will
being
be very hygienic and it will be clean, because given the COVID situation, we don't want to really use the public restrooms.
exactly, but you have to clean it. So
Yep.
that's where the hard work comes in.
Yeah, definitely.
You're traveling with your own house, so
Mhm.
you have to keep it clean, and even the restrooms, you're
Yep.
carrying it with you. So there's a lot of work involved. But yes, I think keeping in mind that we want to minimize our exposure with other people, this is a great idea. This was that was my main motivation, and the first thing that I did was to do a little bit of research. I went to blogs actually
Mhm.
and try to understand what's the basic
Would
things that
you
we
recommend any blog that people could read up on, or anything that's, well, which the.
just start with RV Share or Outdoorsy. These are so RV Share and Outdoorsy. RV Share is like an Airbnb for RVs. It's a
Mm-hmm.
peer sharing. And if you get an opportunity to book through them or such a peer to peer sharing, I would highly recommend
Mm-hmm.
rather than going through Cruise America, which is like a behemoth. It's like, they're a rental service and they just work with RVs all the time. There are definite pros and cons for both, and I'll go into them into details. The pros for booking from Outdoorsy and RV Share is you can see the vehicle, you can ask for a test ride. Many people will allow that because I remember that I was a little hesitant going into the RV thinking that will I be able to manage a 20-foot vehicle, which is so heavy and big. And
Do
although
you need a special driving license, or you can do with your existing motor vehicle license, or do you need a heavy vehicle license?
that's a great question. So allow me to go into a few more minutes into
Mhm.
RVs.
Yep. Yep.
So RVs, there are two kinds of RVs. One's a motorhome,
Mm-hmm.
which is like you are inside and you're driving it, and the other is like a trailer, which you can put at the back of a truck or even a car if you have a strong enough. So whether you need a recreational vehicle license or any kind of specific license depends on the size of the RV, depends on how much you're hauling behind you, and the total weight of the RV.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that you get from Cruise America are called Class C vehicles. So there are three classes: Class A, Class B, and Class C.
Okay.
A vehicles are the largest, like the Rolls Royce of RVs. Like you
Okay.
have all the bells and whistles. It's very comfortable inside. It's like driving a huge bus.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a
Yep.
real home on wheels. Class B RV is like what you would put on the back of a Ford truck. So it's the actual chassis is that of a truck.
Mm-hmm.
So it has less bells and whistles and it's much smaller. Ironically, Class C is bigger than a Class B. You would think that they would go A, B, C, but
Mm-hmm.
Class C is actually a smaller version of a Class A.
Okay.
The ones that Cruise America has are the Class the Class C vehicles, which are you still have a restroom, you still have a kitchen, you still have the refrigerator, the air conditioning, and everything, but it's just in a smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
I think the size of the motorhome for Cruise America is from like you can sleep 3 people to all the way to 7 people, depending on the
Mm-hmm.
size of the RV.
Okay. That's interesting. So, coming back to the license part, then what you mean is probably you don't need one if you're driving like a class C or a class B, but
Exactly.
you go
So
for class A,
for
definitely
Class
you
B
need.
is fine, but again, you have to remember if you're hauling something at the back. And generally in California, you do not need a specific license for a Class C,
Mm-hmm.
but there are state-specific regulations. So let's
Okay.
say if you're going from one state to the other, it would be a good idea to check
Check.
whether the
Okay.
weight and the size limitations.
Mm-hmm.
That means you have to have a different kind of driver's license.
Okay, cool. I think that's good information for people. So, little coming back to the entire process again. So, how did you go about your rental process? Like, what did you do once
So
you figured
I'm
out which one
very
you want and you did your research? So,
Yeah, I'm an impulsive person, so I didn't have a lot of time. I think my entire research and booking and everything was about a 3 week time window, which is really
okay.
small if you want a good RV that you would like to book. So if I had more time, had I planned it out better, then I could have got something from RV Share or Outdoorsy.
Mm-hmm.
But during the time window just like Airbnb, all the good ones are taken.
Yeah.
It was the same here. Like, the very small ones were available. It's like a pop-up trailer at the back with no restrooms and stuff, and I didn't want that. Even for Cruise America, which is where I ended up booking it from, you had to see the inventory in each of the sites. So they have a number of offices in the Bay Area. The
Mm-hmm.
one closest to me had zero availability. But then I kind of expanded my search to other locations, and then I found a location where I could book. So I actually got lucky.
Oh,
So
that.
that's how I booked it. And then the second thing is, where do you stay? That's the second
Yeah.
thing. So
So, where do you go and park yourself out?
exactly, exactly. So
So,
there
is
are
there a site like I know for camping and all, we do get a lot of sites which kind of, hosts all the campgrounds. So, do you have a specific site that you go through, or how would you do it?
right. So many of the national parks and the state parks do have spaces where you can do RV camping as well, but
Mm-hmm.
they are really limited and almost always taken months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
But they're the cheapest, and
Okay.
obviously you'll have a nice location and a nice view and everything. There are various websites that you can actually book campsites from. One is All Stays, then the other one is RV Park and Campgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
This one actually, RV Park and Campgrounds, actually has all the campgrounds within the national parks.
Okay.
You can look it up and you can see if you have anything available. Then there are also apps, specific apps. I know that I used one called RV Life, which tells you about the campgrounds. And I ended up going to a place called KOA. It stands for Campgrounds of America.
Mm-hmm.
Campgrounds spelled with a K.
Okay. Interesting.
So
That's
that's
a
very
good branding strategy.
I kept thinking, why KOA? I mean, of all the things, why not COA? Like KOA. But anyway, so the campgrounds of America, I would say, are like a budget hotel. It's not motel; it's a budget hotel. It's a little above just having any small campsite. So they have a number of amenities. They have swimming pools, they have like free breakfasts. Now it was obviously stopped due to COVID reasons, but they had like a free breakfast. They had activities and stuff. And I was looking for safety. So I found a campground which was more expensive than what you would get otherwise. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, you can camp for free. There is this thing called boondogging, which essentially means that you look for places where you can camp for free.
Yep.
And and people do that. And there are many people who are gracious enough to open up their property for people to camp too. So I think there are
And do
websites.
they charge anything, or is it like a free of cost? Like, do you have a site where you can go and find these things?
Yeah, so there is this website, I think, called boondogging.com or
Okay.
something. You can look it up. But most importantly, if you just search for I was talking about this app that I had called RV Life.
Mm-hmm.
If you search within that for free campsites, it'll tell you like people's backyards or huge backyards or properties that you can go and camp in, or for very minimal fee. And boondogging is popular for people who are really veterans of RV life. You know, they've been RVing for a long time. They know the size of their, sewer
Mhm,
tank. Because essentially, at the end of the day, why would you need a campsite with hookups? Is because you need electricity,
mhm.
you need water, and you need for the wastewater to flow somewhere,
Right.
which includes the black water and the gray water. The black water being the sewage water, and the gray water being the water that you use to wash your hands, use in the sink and stuff. So that's a finite volume that you, every RV has a tank size that determines how often you need to empty it out and refill the water. And for us, and I was really lucky that I actually asked this question to the guy who was showing me the RV, and he said it's not going to last for more than 2.5 to 3 days because you're three people. So even without having a daily shower, it really fills up fast. So boondogging is only for people who know where you can go, and there are open places like uh, some gas stations have place where you can
Dispose your.
dispose your RV stuff and
Mhm.
places. So you can find those places, but not for someone who's just starting to RV like me. So
Okay.
for me, it was safe to go to a
Like
camp.
you have to know those places, otherwise they're not openly advertised, and you don't know whether you will find one or not.
Right,
Not
right.
planned of it. Okay, interesting. So, coming back to your, booking and reservations. So, can you give like people who are watching some idea around the kind of budget or how,
Yeah.
like what is the rental cost on a range basis, like so that people have some idea, how much they need to plan for when, because I think people have fair enough idea when they're going for rental cars or they're going flights or whatever hotels, but for an RV, how much would it typically cost?
Yeah, I think the RV costs have drastically gone up in the last few months since the shelter in place has taken effect, just because many people are using the RVs. And so right now, I can tell you in the Cruise America, I went for the smallest Class C motorhome. It cost me $225 per day, just the basic charge. And the charges add up because you have additional charges for, so there's an LPG cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to pay whether you want to fill it up or they will fill it up when you come back. So charges like that, then the state taxes are there. I ended up spending around $1,500 for a 5 day RV trip.
And this
And
includes your insurance and everything, coverage?
so insurance is optional.
Okay.
If you already have an insurance
Then you
your own
just,
provider, you don't. I did take the insurance though, for the simple reason they said that if there is an accident, they will not cover it for more than $1,000 or something. So
oh.
I ended up taking insurance, which was about $15 per day. So not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
It does add up. And the thing that you definitely need to keep in mind is these RVs are gas guzzlers. So they give you a mileage of about 6 to 10 miles per hour.
Okay.
So it's really bad. So, it's like at the end of I did a calculation and I think I spent an additional $250 on gas. So that'll give you an idea about how much it cost
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Smallest motorhome, and the prices go up depending on the size of the motorhome.
Mm-hmm. So I think you did share some interesting pictures with us.
Yes.
So I thought let me pull up some of them and maybe we can have some stories around those pictures and you can share some fun moments and they're very nice. I love them. So let me pull up some of them. Let me
Sure.
do a quick screen share. So what I did was I tried to put them together and we will see how our viewers enjoyed it because I loved looking at them. So I think this was the RV that we were talking all about. So this is the
That's right.
size. It looks pretty big, It's not like your C class is small. It's definitely
Yeah.
no small.
It's a 20 footer and it can sleep three people. So they were perfect for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a queen bed which me and my daughter slept in, and there was a twin bed that my son used.
Oh, cool. That means actually four people can fit in if you have kids. Like two adults and two kids can also fit in, kind
Yeah,
of.
in the twin bed. I mean, if you want, you can fit in another small kid.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So this is the size, and is this the number from the RV rentals that you picked up? Maybe people can look, keep a note of that.
Yes, yes. And this is a 20-footer, which is the smallest Class C motorhome by
Mhm.
Cruiser.
Cool, interesting. So I think, and that's your son and daughter, right?
My son and daughter, yes. My partners in crime.
How old are they, both of them?
My daughter is 6 and my son is 12.
Oh, okay. Interesting to have, like, they're like really small still.
Yes. So this, actually, I didn't tell you guys where I went. I
Mm-hmm.
went to a place in Southern California called the Kern Valley.
Mm-hmm.
The Kern Valley is the site where you have the giant Sequoia National Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's a river there called the Kern River. The Kern River apparently is the deadliest river in the US. It has whitewater rafting, and it's the third deadliest river in the world in terms of fatalities. So it has some really high class rapids
Mm-hmm.
where people do it professionally. So this is the website, I mean, sorry, this is the campsite that we were in. It was nice and shaded. And on one side, we had the water hookups,
Mm-hmm.
and we also had the electricity hookups.
And how hot, like during the season that you went on, was it like really hot or it was comfortable? Like, and do these RV come with air conditioning or you have to run your thing on air condition if you want that?
Yeah, so that's a great question because there is one size smaller that Cruise America has, which is basically the structure on back of a Ford truck. But the difference was the air conditioning would only work if you hooked it to an AC circuit.
Okay.
And the ones that you see here, they do have air conditioning. And if I were to just stop somewhere, let's say, and take rest for a few hours, I could use the AC using the diesel generator. So there is a generator in this, and you can use it anytime.
Oh, that's interesting. That means if you don't get on time to a power backup and you want to stop, you still have some power and light and everything running
Yeah,
using
absolutely.
your gens. Okay, interesting. So moving on, I think this was another location where you. So you were like, this is looking like off-roading. Are you really doing off-roading with your RV? Like I was like, really?
This is the plus point of when you don't know enough, you can be really brave because you don't know enough. That's what happened to me because I had no idea how an RV would behave off road, and these are all unpaved roads. These are not even marked, but it seemed interesting, and I took off up the hill. And after some time, I realized that as you know, it's a heavy truck, and I was going up, and I realized that the tires were skidding. And
Oh.
up in the hill, I actually found a place to turn around and I came back instead of going up all the way. But this is what happens. You're just brave because you don't know enough.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's risky because the tires are small and it looks like it's doing pretty much some amount of off-roading.
Yeah, yeah. People do it. I mean, if you had your own RV and you were really sure about the tires, but
Mm-hmm.
these are rentals which have really been smacked around a lot. In fact, I was naive. So, Cruise America does not let you do a test drive, which is a real bummer because within about half an hour of driving this RV, I realized that the wheel alignments was off.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire RV would veer towards the left all the time. So I developed some really good arm muscles just trying to keep it on track on
Yeah.
the road, constantly having to. So that was an added experience for me.
So I think folks who are driving RV, they definitely need good upper body strength to control the RV on the road.
Or you develop it. Yeah, I
Yep.
mean this was a really battered down RV, but
Interesting, interesting. So I think we have more pictures. I see some of them from inside the RV, and here are the beds I think that you talked about. So let's hear about some fun stories of what happened in your RV.
Yeah. So the table that you see that my kids are having snacks in,
Oh,
that table actually comes down.
mm.
That metal rod can be removed. The table comes down, and the mattresses can be rearranged, and that's how you have the twin bed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And on top of you see the driver's seat. Right on
Mhm.
top of the driver's seat is that part of the RV that kind of juts out. That's where you have the queen bed, where my daughter's sleeping.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So And interestingly, I mean, if my daughter and my son was here, they would say the only highlight of the entire trip for them was the whitewater rafting. But they really didn't enjoy RV life so much because there's no internet. See, they're just hooked onto their screens. Like we went to this campsite, and obviously there was patchy internet, and they were like, "Oh my God, there's no." I said, "Well, you come here to do camping, and you still want to watch Netflix. Then what's the use?"
I know that's true because kids nowadays, I don't think they can get away from their electronic. But I shouldn't blame the kids. I think even adults are hooked onto all the electronics. I don't see too many adults going off their phone and going off the grid.
That's so true. That's so true. But
I remember a lot of California, the areas up south and even interiors of north, like we do not get any cell coverage.
oh yeah, let me add one thing that I found was really important. So while you're driving the RV and I went up the mountains and it was really bad terrain. The first day, and I would like you guys, take it as a warning, plan well, plan in advance. The first day I had to drive about 350 miles, and I drove it almost, I would say more than a quarter of it over the hilly terrain. So just imagine first time driving an RV with an alignment off on the wheel, so I have to constantly veer it to the right, and driving up in the night over the mountains. That was not a great idea. We just got delayed by the time we started. So
Mhm.
that's something to keep in mind if you are going to drive the RV for the first time. Make sure you have plenty of daylight when you set out, and give yourself time, because inadvertent delays are going to creep up and the RV is not as fast as your car would be. So keep yourself that time. And the other is when you're up in the mountains or even in the forests or off grid, basically, your GPS might not work. The GPS on your phone might not work.
Mhm.
So I would recommend getting an app downloaded called RV Life, and for a very small fee you can download the state map on your phone.
Mhm.
So since I was traveling in California and had planned to go to Oregon, for a simple fee I downloaded that on my phone, and then I could look it up anytime, even when there was no cell signal. And I could use that to navigate if I had to change course and there was no cell signal.
Okay, interesting. So I look at this picture in the middle. So is this like something specific to the camping ground or?
Yes, yes. So this campground had like a community kitchen, it had a pool, it had a small store where you could buy stuff. So that was their handmade uh, signs to
It looks
navigate.
very interesting. So I was like, oh, they had these many facilities, really? But then probably during COVID, a lot of it might be non-operational to start
Yes.
with.
Like for example, they had Friday night movie nights under the skies, and that was stopped because of COVID. They had some kids activities planned on Saturdays. That was stopped due to COVID. And they also had like pancake breakfasts. So what they did is for the pancake breakfast on Sundays, they just asked you to bring your own plates, and you gave it to your plate, and you could go back to your own spot and have it. So it was not a communal setting as they would have wanted it to be due to
Hmm.
COVID, but it was still a very nice camp. So I'm happy that I actually got us a place there, even booking last minute. Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. And this is the sports club that you used for your rafting. I think I have some of those interesting pictures as well.
That's right. So this is one of the better known whitewater rafting places in the Kern Valley. And the city, it's a small little city called Kernville. And that's where they have their office.
So I think I see more fun times. So
Yeah.
what did you do about food? I think, looking about it. So did you try cooking or was it always takeaway? So how did you manage that part?
Yeah, so we wanted to do a lot of cooking. So I planned ahead. I bought a lot of stuff, especially breakfasts I wanted to make. But guess what? When we reached the campsite, we realized that our burner was not working. So the RV, the first 2 nights the AC didn't work properly and the burners didn't work. So on the third day, I had to make a detour to a place called Bakersville, which was a few hours away, to get the RV repaired. So I honestly know everything about the RV right now because I had to read up the book like crazy. They had a handbook, where you can do troubleshooting if something goes wrong. And so many things went wrong in this RV. uh,
Yeah, I think you would be a good person to create a checklist. Do's and don'ts. Check, 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 check the burner working. Check
I
the.
can tell you what not to do and what are the. I mean, in one.
Definitely have a checklist for people to go and check. It's like, when you have a flight plan, the pilot gets the flight plan and he has to do a checklist. Probably
That's
we could have one of those.
so the first 2 days we had planned to cook, but we couldn't. Like I had marinated chicken and what, and then I essentially had to cook khichdi in a microwave, which was thankfully the electricity was there, so that was
Mhm.
working. And then I had to cook chicken in a microwave, and then later on the third day onwards, I was able to cook. But of course, the pictures that you see with the big smiles are of course pizza and burgers.
At least the kids look happy, and I'd still see an iPad hanging there though.
Yes, yes.
Good, good. Oh, this is your fun part, really. So I see your whitewater rafting, and I see a lot of water activity happening. So I'm assuming you had a gala time around that.
Yes. So this lake is called Lake Isabella, and the
Mm-hmm.
best part of this lake is you can actually wade, let's say, up to your chest or so, up to a mile inside the water. So it's not very deep unless you go further down.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw a lot of people and kids and even dogs. They're just wading around and having fun. And because the waves were not, it was not that bad that you couldn't handle it, and the water wasn't too cold. So it was perfect to just lounge around. And the beach was pebbly. It was not a sandy beach,
Mm-hmm.
and they allowed the RVs and the cars to go right up to the water. So in this picture that you see, our RV was parked about, I would say, about 6 feet away from the water. And
Mm-hmm.
so essentially, we just opened the door, we could hang around. So that's the fun part of the RV. I mean, you can just lie in that bed and look out to the water and enjoy it, or you can just cook a meal right in front of wherever you want to go. So that
Oh,
is
wow.
unparalleled.
That's really interesting. Like 6 feet from the water and having your home with you. It's like, oh, building a house next to the lake.
Yeah.
That's very nice. So tell me about your rafting experience. And it really looks crazy and scary. How did you manage? And you managed with small kids. Like, I think even they're equally adventurous like the mom.
Well, they don't have an option because at this age they really can run away and they're in an RV. So both of them are really interested to go. That has to be said about them. They are not afraid of the water. In fact, I'm afraid of the water, but I still managed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have done whitewater rafting in Rishikesh while in India, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved that experience. It was one of the most unforgettable experiences of my life.
I,
And so there are 3 or 4 whitewater rafting clubs in the area, but not all of them take kids as young as a 6-year-old. In fact, that's the only company, the one that I have here, that was the only company that took a 6-year-old, had to be 50 pounds, and they essentially did a life vest check to make sure that if she fell overboard, they could, safely pull her up. And she passed, and we were finally allowed. So essentially, I paid money for this trip, for this experience, even before I was sure that we would be allowed in because they did a
Mhm.
final check at the site.
And you can obviously not leave her alone somewhere. She's too small. You
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to secure
And
this.
we didn't want to miss out.
Yeah.
All 3 of us were there, and we had a very experienced uh, person with us who had like 33 years of experience in these rapids. And the rapids that we used were class 3.
Mhm.
And, 3 of them were class 3 and 2 of them were class 2. So the rapids go up to difficulty up to class 6. So essentially, class 6 are like life-threatening rapids. If you like falling off a waterfall,
Mhm.
and they have up to like 4 or 5 rapids that they can take. So it was a beginner rafting experience, but it was good enough for us. I mean, in fact, we were four rafts in one team. So they generally leave in teams so that if something happens or one raft capsizes, the others, there's a backup.
Hmm.
And there was one rapid in which all the three rafts capsized, and we were the only ones who didn't.
Whoa.
And one person who was in his 70s, he got really badly hurt. His hand hit a rock, and we
Oh.
had to take a break. So it's not entirely without accidents, but we got lucky. We were fine, and we had a very experienced person with us to help
Yeah.
guide us.
Probably because of the children, I think they make sure that it was safe.
Yeah, yeah. So we have
That's
something to talk about. Like we were the only raft that did not capsize.
I remember this happening to rafting when I had gone. Like we did about. You spoke about India, and I remember doing that too. And we were actually doing the entire length, which is something like 29 or 32 kilometers.
Wow.
And that entire stretch, if you do it in one go, your palms really start hurting because the
Mm-hmm.
amount of rowing you have to do, and those the paddles are not very comfortable and they're not well padded. So literally we all had blisters on our arms. We were trying to pull the water, but in that, I think we were three rafts together, and both the rafts capsized. Ours was the only one which didn't capsize. It almost went up in the air. We were about to capsize, like full topple, but somehow we were able to maintain the balance. But it was like crazy. At one point, it was only me rowing and the other person who was the expert guy, and then everybody was with their paddles sitting inside. So it was like a crazy experience, but it was fun, but pretty
Yeah.
scary because even in Rishikesh, they go up to about level 5.
Yeah, yeah. I remember in Rishikesh, I was in a camp where we went rafting for a few days, not only one day. And we went up to level three and level fours there.
They
So,
have levels till level 5. If you do the full stretch, it comes down till that.
mm-hmm.
So it was pretty scary, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, see, these are the stories you can tell. I mean, I
I
can.
know, rafting is fun. And
Yeah.
then we've done like a couple of other places, but they're not as scary as that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it is interesting to know a lake where the water is so shallow because we have a lot of people with children, they would love to experience this. So even if no RV trip, people, you can go and spend some time on the lake and it's amazing. I think by the look of it, I can see that. So it's Lake Elizabeth, right?
It's Lake Isabella.
Oh, Isabella. Why did I come to Elizabeth? I was
That's close
close.
by. That's right here.
I know, I was wondering. So I think that's the last of the pictures that I had, which we wanted to share. And coming back to our, in the sense, coming back to our topic, I also wanted to understand, from you a little better that. Uh, so you spoke about having hiccups and issues. So I want to hear about that first. Like what were the typical challenges that you faced, and
Mhm.
which people should be aware of while they're doing a trip like this.
Right. So I would say the three things that you have to keep, like an RV booking site will not tell you is, and you have to ask is number one, can I do a test drive? That's number one. And I can tell you for a fact that Cruise America doesn't do that. But if you were to go through peer to peer, like you're going to rent someone else's RV, just ask them, can I go for a test drive? That's important. If you can manage it, that's great. The second is you have to find out what are your options if something happens in the road.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One of the main reasons I chose Cruise America was they had a 24/7 service, roadside service. So if something happens, I could have called them. Of course, I did call them, and it took me 2 days to get in touch with them, but that's a different story. But at least when I left, it seemed like a great idea that they have 24/7 assistance. So that's something that if you're going to take it from another person who owns an RV and you're doing an RV share, then find out what happens. Like, do you have an insurance that I could call? What exactly happens if I have a flat tire or
Mm-hmm.
so that's important. And the third is what's the approximate mileage of your RV? Mileages vary, and if it's a newer RV, that would be helpful, and you would know. and also ask what's the capacity of your water tank and your sewage tank. That'll, for example, if it's like 10 gallon tank, or sorry, whatever, 10 liter tank, it's you can and there are numbers out there. You can just Google them and find out, okay, a 10 liter tank, if you have a family of three and using it for 3 days, how soon does it fill up? Because if you're going to boondog, and if you're going to just do the RV route, fun fact is, you can boondog in any of the national parks in the US, even if you don't have a camping site. So
Oh,
let's
that's interesting.
yeah, that's great. I didn't know about that. So essentially, let's say you don't have a camping site, but you want to boondog. So essentially, you can just go and put your RV anywhere, and it's not illegal. You can do it. It's the only thing is, you will not have hookups. You will not have the power. You would have to be dependent on your generator, and so that's the only
Which
you know.
means if you go to a cooler place, then it's perfectly fine. You can kind of hatch on anywhere and do that.
That's right. Well, if it's very cool, then the additional problem is what happens to your stuff.
Yeah,
It can actually freeze up, but that's a separate problem. Yeah.
interesting. So, Shalini, one other thing is, I see a lot of questions from people. So, that's interesting. A lot of people are, everybody's kind of praising. They're really surprised that you've taken this. They feel it's a great way to travel.
It
And
is fun.
a lot of people are like telling you hats off, you've taken the kids and you've done this. It's like amazing. So
Thank you. Don't
that's,
tell my son this, because he thinks it was a bad idea. Away from the
yeah.
screen.
A lot of people are feeling that, it's a great thing that you've done and you've set a big example for everybody, I guess. And there are people who are curious. So I have some questions around, how far was your trip? I think you did answer that in
Yeah.
terms of you told us where you went. So people were curious to understand how far did you go.
Mhm.
They also want to know around rentals, like Shajesh is asking, like, is there a minimum number of days that you need to rent your RV? Is there
I
anything
think
like that?
I think Cruise America, and don't quote me on this, I don't remember. I think the minimum is 3 days that you can rent, and the total distance that I traversed from right from the RV rental and bringing it back was 850 miles.
Okay. So do they have a basic mileage requirement also, like a max miles you can do, or is that unlimited like
You
cars?
have to tell them an approximate mileage that you want, and if you go beyond it, then you have to pay extra based on the number of miles. So there's a base price that is
Mm.
just of the RV, and then there's a mileage price. So if you cross that, whatever you signed up the contract for, if you go further, then you have to pay extra. If you don't travel as many miles, you can get some money back, but I'm not sure exactly what's the amount.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So, and there are folks, they also want to understand, like, can your kids sit with you in the front, or they always have to be at the back, or how does that part work? Like, do you need kids seats, or
Yeah, yeah.
because you had a very small young daughter with you?
Right. So my son is 12. He's able to sit right next to me in the passenger seat.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter actually had her car seat. So the RVs come equipped with all the hookups that you would need to, rig up your car seat. So if you have a really small child, you can still travel with a car seat, a full-size car seat.
Interesting. So, and then also know, so I think a lot of our viewers, they love the pictures. They find them
Thank you.
really nice, cute pics. I think Ruchi's been talking about the pictures that you posted. And they also, even in the rafting, I think people are like pretty interested to understand, what was the level, how scary was it?
Mhm.
Did you really freak out, or they can manage?
Again, if you don't know too much about it, you're not afraid. So I just wanted the rafting experience. I was very sure that if they're allowing a 6-year-old, it's not going to be too bad, because
Mhm.
I know how bad it could get, because at Rishikesh I've gone to level 4, and if they're still allowing a kid to do it, so it should be okay. Although, whenever you go there in Kern River, you have these big posters everywhere saying so and so number of people, like 317 people have died in the river. So don't be foolish, like don't just jump in the river thinking, because the rapids are really fast and there
Mm,
are lots of rocks. As I was saying, the other one person who capsized from the boat, he actually hurt his hand on the rock, and it was there was a big gash just from the rock. It was almost like it was a knife that went through his hand, and there was a huge amount of blood. The entire raft, when we were coming back, was filled with blood. And thankfully, the guy who was accompanying us, he was like the head of that group. He had a safety pack, and
mm.
he went ahead and put all the bandages and everything. But it was a deep gash, so they have these warnings everywhere. But as I said, that this company, the Sierra something whatever, was the only one that allowed a 6-year-old. The others just flat out said no one younger than 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the age is one consideration I think people should keep in mind. Probably, kids who are smaller than 6-year old, under certain weight categories. I think people have to be conscious and more,
That's
cognizant of that. So
yes.
that's interesting. And, Shalini, I also wanted to understand, I think we spoke a lot about RV, the life, everything. So did you get to socialize with people you camped with? Did you get to know other people? I know it's COVID days, you wouldn't want to, but did you make friends on the process? Like how is that part taken care?
I mean, Neela, you travel a lot, and you would know that one of the most important parts of traveling is meeting new people.
I know.
That's a huge aspect. And I was actually thinking I'll probably not meet anyone, but we had camping sites, right? So in the campsite that we were in, we had camping, right? Like there were people right next to us, behind us, and everywhere. And I actually had a lot of people who were really helpful. As a first time camper, oh, one thing to remember is these RVs, they don't have a backup camera.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to back up, you actually have to ask someone to get down. Like I would ask my son to get down, and he would do hand gestures to say that, okay, you can back up. And so that's another thing you have to keep in mind if you're a brand new RV person. When you go to book a campsite, it'll tell you, do you have to back up or can you just face forward in the campsite? So
Okay.
these are things to consider. Well, I did the backup one. So, but I had problems. For example, my water hookup was not working, and I would just ask someone with masks on. And there were so many other people who were veterans of RVing, so they would come and help me. And I made a few really nice connections. When people help you out, like I still remember the gross part of the entire thing is when you have to empty out the gray water and the black water.
Mm-hmm.
um, you have to get your gloves on. I mean, just be prepared, get gloves on. But this thing, darn thing, wouldn't come off. And I saw this man with an RV standing, and I was like, do I ask him? Should I? I mean, just imagine having to ask someone to open something that is going to throw out a stench. So, but I couldn't get it to work. I had to. So I asked him, and he loosened it for me. And then we started talking, and we got to know that he's actually moving from Michigan all the way to Marin, and he's doing it on an RV. All his
Oh.
stuff came over, and he's moving from there on an RV. And then I got to meet them, and we talked about life in Bay Area. So yes, so those small interactions, that's how you feel like people are nice, people are so good. And we live in a uh, little cloistered little places, and we don't get to mix, especially now. We don't get to see the goodness in people. So I think that was really nice.
Oh,
So
that's
many people
interesting. Did you have any fire? Did you set up any fire around your RV? Like, are you allowed to do that? Did you do campfires and
Yes.
stuff?
So there was a campfire site,
Mm-hmm.
but because my the LP, the gas, the cylinder thing was not working, I couldn't cook there. I just got so bummed. I didn't want to because I got everything marinated from home and I kept it in the fridge. But I was just bummed. I didn't want to do it. But yes, so the most of the campsites, when you go there, they'll have a small store where they sell firewood or
Mm-hmm.
coals or whatever you need. Or
Did
when
you
you
set
are,
up fire? Like, did you try doing that? No.
it is too hot, Southern
Oh,
California.
yeah, I know.
The only reason you would set up a fire is because you wanted to cook. Like, you wanted to
Yeah,
grill.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, if it is winter, then we would have probably set up a fire and done the marshmallows. I did the marshmallows back home because my kids wanted to do it. I said, let's go back home and do the marshmallows thing, but we couldn't do
That's
it.
interesting.
Yeah.
So I think while you were talking about, setting up different things and making sure to check out all the stuff
Hmm.
and even meeting helpful people on the way, I think that's pretty interesting. But you did mention about this person moving from one place to other. So is it a possibility that you take a RV from one place and rent it, return it at another location? So does that work like a car rental, or are there restrictions around it?
Great question. And I haven't ventured it, but I think it would be possible. Firstly, I see this person as an example. The other was when I brought back the RV right in my locality, one of my neighbors came up to me
Mm-hmm.
and started talking, and he said that he's going to Yellowstone. And I said, how did you book your RV? And I was saying, don't book from Cruise America. I had a lot of problems. And then he said, no, I actually booked it from an RV rental company in Yellowstone, but they
Okay.
had rental trucks here. So it is possible that you can book something from another place. So I'm thinking it should be possible. It might be a little more expensive that way, but it could be possible.
Yeah, so not so much for booking. I was more interested in returning it. Like a lot of people might not want to do like a back and forth journey, so they
Mhm.
might do one way and then return the RV and maybe drive back, or do other kind of stuff like take a flight back or. But I
Yeah.
know the amount of stuff you will carry in the RV, you can never fit it on a flight or a car.
Yeah, I haven't looked into this that, but I would think it's possible. And the other thing that I realized after I came back when I was looking into blog sites is apparently there are some services that allow you. So let's say you want to go to this X camp.
Mm-hmm.
You have booked the place and you want an RV. The person who owns the RV is actually going to drive the RV and put it there, and then you just go drive up with your own car and start RVing. So I think there's a distinct plus point here, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not a small vehicle, and since every single day of those 5 days I went out in the different locations, I would have to unhook everything and close
Oh,
everything,
okay. So
schedule
it's always good to have your car.
or let's say you had a truck that you could haul, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a trailer, an RV trailer, if you can manage it. If it's not very hilly, I mean, if you have experience, even hilly is nothing. I've seen people do it, but if you are just starting out and you would just want to have a trailer, the good thing is you can just untether it, go wherever you have, and come back. Because for me, I would have to remove everything. And then, since when you're driving around, things tend to fall off. So everything would be closed off, and the sink has to be cleared off, the kitchen has to be cleared. So it's a lot of work every time you leave. And when you come back, you have to do the same hookups again.
But that's an interesting point. I think this is a very, very valid point for everybody. It makes
Yeah,
a lot of sense.
yeah, yeah.
True, true. So I think we are almost towards the end of the show. So I would, ask you, everybody's saying, however, Shalini, hats off to you.
Thank you.
I think people are like super impressed, and it's really amazing. I think to take this journey and moreover take it with children. So, anything you want to tell the moms? Do they need to take special care? Like you've been a single mom, you've done it, so you've set an example for all the other moms that they can safely take their kids, have the
Yeah.
journey, do it alone, and still come back
Yeah.
all in one piece, no bones broken, and have a fun experience to share. So what would you tell them? Like, what would you suggest?
So for first time RV moms, I'm just going to tell you it's not going to be a vacation for you. I'm sorry to tell you, it's going to be a great experience, but it's not a vacation. After I came back, I took the next day off just to recover because you have to do the exact same things you do at home. You have to cook, you have to clean. The RV is a small place. Make sure you have a mop. Make sure you have a broom. You have to constantly broom and mop. Kids are going out for a swim. Kids are coming back with sand in their feet. You have to clean. So it's a lot of work. But my kids are small. I mean, still young. Hopefully, as they grow, it's going to be. So it's a lot of work. So keep that in mind. That if you want a relaxing vacation, maybe RVing is for the first time is not for you, or at least team up with other people and go in a group where you can share because for me it was just on me. But if you're looking for a new experience, go for it. It's great. I mean, I was actually coming back and thinking, okay, should I buy an RV now because I love this lifestyle. I mean, honestly, if I didn't have the kids to take care of, I would be a nomad. I could just take my car, laptop, work from anywhere, and live anywhere.
I think we really loved having you, Shalini, and having a nomad. I'm sure we'll have more stories to, ask you for and share. And I know you've been a travel bug, so I'm sure you would have other experiences, and we would love to have you back on our show. So
Thank
it
you
was,
for giving me the
yeah.
platform.
I think this was a lot of fun, and I'm sure a lot of people are watching. We do have a lot of people watching later because what happens is nowadays it's become summer, so people tend to have a lot of other activities in the evening. So I'm sure we'll have many more people coming up to watch this, and it's a fun experience. I'm sure people would, go and follow something. You've really set a trail for them. The
Thank you.
other thing that I want to tell you is also as a part of this, episodes, we are trying to set up a blog. So we are still in the process of setting it up. I think we are still a couple of weeks away from it. So once we set it up, we would love to give you an opportunity if you want to write on it, if you want us to help you with it. We
I
can
already
give you
have
some.
written material up, so I would love to contribute. Yes.
So if you contribute your stories, we would love to host that. It will be part of our blog. Shahid very soon would be announcing some of those stuff, but that we are not just leaving it with the show. So we'll have the some of the informations that you shared in terms of details, which would definitely help people to plan better, and especially a checklist.
Yes, very important.
Do's and don'ts for people. I think you had a lot of great insights, and it was lovely talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Lovely. Bye.